Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kudlow. I'm David Asman, in for Larry Kudlow. Happy Friday. Well, as the November elections approach, Democrats are scrambling to find issues to run on. Some are realizing that their progressive agenda, their far-left agenda, is backfiring big time as the entire country moves strongly to the center. But the deadly school shootings in Uvalde, Texas, again is revealing their own strong tendency to go to grandstanding extremes. We saw that with Beto O'Rourke. We've seen that with some Democrats calling for a move to get rid of the Second Amendment. They always seem to go to extremes. So is it even possible for Democrats to stop their knee-jerk tendency toward the confrontational far left and focus on bringing down the sky-high inflation that's affecting every American in the country right now? Joining me now to discuss this is Charlie Hurt. He's Washington Times opinion editor and Fox News contributor, and Mercedes Schlapp, who's allowed me to call her Mercy. Thank you, Mercedes. Former White House Strategic Communications Director. Mercy, let me start with you. So Democrats were kind of excited with these two issues. You have abortion and the gun control issue, which they thought they would be able to utilize going into November, but they can't seem to avoid that tendency to go to the far left. On abortion, they're talking about 9-month abortions. On gun control, they're talking about getting rid of the Second Amendment. They can't find the center where most Americans are.
Look, I think that for the Democrats, it becomes such an emotional issue, both on the issue of abortion and on the issue of gun control. And instead of really trying to find bipartisan solutions, for example, when you look at the issue of gun violence, one of the things that we're seeing in our schools is the lack of security in these schools. And you have all this COVID money that was given to these school districts. And what are they being used for? I mean, so in essence, it's basically saying, okay, can we find a way for our schools to be safe, just as safe as if you go to the Pentagon or go to the White House? I mean, if the President Biden's being protected, why can't our children be protected? And I think for the Democrats, they keep losing ground because they're also losing on these other issues. For example, not honing in on how they're going to deal with inflation, a potential recession, and high gas prices. Instead, they're more focused on another issue that they're emotional about, climate change.
And I just want to stay with you for a second, Mercy, because it's also the style with which they do it. I mean, you look at Beto O'Rourke at a tear-jerking press conference with the governor of Texas and all of the people who were right there in Uvalde dealing with parents that were grieving. He comes out with this grandstanding effort. Then you have, and I'm just going to read for you, Randy Weingarten, the head of the American Federation of Teachers, the union president. She says, they don't trust us, particularly in Texas, where they ban books and stop kids from talking about who they are in sexuality. If you trust us so much to carry a gun, why don't you trust us to do what our work really is? Trust us to be the mind workers. I mean, how incredibly politically incorrect for this moment in the true sense of the word is that statement by Weingarten?
Well, I think for when you even talk about the National School Board Association calling for the National Guard or the military to go to these school board meetings because the parents are domestic terrorists, they have lost sight of what their responsibility is, which is to educate our children in the areas of math, English, and science and social studies, not to indoctrinate our children, not to try to change their sex, and not to try to divide us racially. And this is why you have seen the parents rise up and basically push back against the Democrats, push back against the leftist media, and push back against these teachers' unions.
And Charlie, let's face it, it's the ultimate betrayal of the thing that Biden ran on to become president, which is that he was going to unite the country. I mean, every time there is a critical issue, whether it was the Afghanistan withdrawal or this particular issue, or inflation itself, you get this far move to the radical left, which is a direct betrayal of his promise.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I think that, the fact that the Democrats were so quick to seize on for example, abortion, and now on gun rights, I think underscores just how difficult the set of issues that are before the American people right now, that are the most obvious issues that are driving people in elections right now. It reveals just how terrible they are for Democrats, whether it's gas prices or inflation or illegal immigration at the border. All of these things are really torching Democrat chances in November, as well as destroying and undermining all the credibility that President Biden has. And so then you're exactly right. They grasp onto these issues and they don't try to find a solution. They're not in search of a solution. Yeah. They're in search of an issue to inflame and further divide people so that we don't come up with sensible solutions to anything, because they realize that they're going to lose, and the people that wind up making the sensible solutions will, maybe we've reached sensible solutions, maybe we don't, but they won't involve Democrats. It'll be Republicans come November making any sensible solutions out of all of this stuff. Yeah. But it's sad because we need two vibrant, intelligent, honest parties. I'm obviously a conservative, and I believe more in Republican issues. But you have to have an honest, viable Democratic Party as a counterweight. But that's not what we have.
And Charlie, an honest press, by the way, the media, which is the right and the left arm of the Democratic Party, have been pushing these false stories on all of these issues. And just on gun issues away, you've highlighted that in your tweets that you've been sending out about stories. I think it was it the Washington Post that had that story about the origin of the AR-50, which was totally wrong. They said it began in the Nazi. I mean, it may seem like incidental to the major story, but the fact is that they keep overplaying their hand in these issues.
Yeah, and it seems like the loudest voices, especially on gun issues, the loudest voices are the people that know the least about it and are the most ill-informed. And then the first thing that out of their mouths is usually a lie. And so if that's where we're starting the conversation, we're not going to find a reasonable, sensible solution to anything if one half of the debate, they always begin with the lies. And a lot of it is based in ignorance, because they don't know anything about what they're talking about. I don't know that that's better or worse. It's probably maybe a little bit better, but still, you have to be somewhat informed. But at the very least, you can't be lying all the time. Right. You can't work with somebody who's just lying all the time.
Yeah. And Mercedes, the media, speaking of the media, they loved it during the primaries to point up Trump's role in all of this, because the minute they get Trump back, they're hoping to get the ratings that they had when Trump was president, which they've lost terribly now that they have to defend Biden. But in fact, during this particular primaries that we saw over the past couple of weeks, I've never seen the GOP more united on issues. Maybe Trump was an issue here and there, but on the issues themselves, the policies themselves of the Biden administration, how to get out of the mess that we're in, I've never seen more unity.
Right. Well, and that's true. And it's been such an interesting debate to watch all these primaries, whether the Trump endorsed candidate won or the one that Trump didn't endorse won. But the reality is all those candidates, those GOP candidates, they all ran on an America First agenda. They ran on President Trump's policies because they knew that that was the only way that they can present an agenda that basically combats against Biden's weakened policies and the Democrats' weakened policies. We know what works when it comes to ensuring that we can bring gas prices down. That is, first and foremost, becoming energy independent. Right. We also know what works when you're able to control the border, because President Trump and the Republicans were able to do that. Now you're seeing a huge influx of illegal immigrants coming through the border, where we have no handle on what's going on in that issue, with drug cartels profiting and really in control of our border. And so that's why you're seeing these Republican candidates really in a strong position to win in November. I mean, you're talking about probably over 25 seats that Republicans can win and do strong both in the House and in the Senate. And it's why you're seeing the fact that the Democrats are trying desperately to try to pass any piece of legislation come the fall. And really, they've had a very difficult time of getting their agenda through the process.
Yeah, and Charlie, what gets me is when I keep hearing Democrats say that there's no policy alternative from the Republicans. Well, there sure is. Mercedes just said a couple of them. Get back to energy independence, get back to what we had in terms of border security. I mean, it's essentially going back to policies that we had in place that this administration just ripped up willy-nilly.
Right. And of course, this is exactly why Donald Trump is like kryptonite to leftist and Democrat politicians. He's like, have you ever poured salt on a slug and they just kind of turn inside out and start
Actually, I'm embarrassed to admit I have.
That's what Trump is like for these people.
Okay,
yeah,
I
exactly.
haven't.
It's a guy thing, Mercy. It's a guy thing.
About.
I know it's horrible,
yeah, exactly.
but it is a kind of a guy thing.
You put salt on a frog, maybe, but a slug? I mean, only in like Central Virginia.
No,
Charlie,
no, I'm afraid everywhere where there are boys, rambunctious
I think
boys,
I've lost track
you'll
of my
find
point
that.
here. But the point is that the reason Trump is like this to leftists and Democrat politicians is not because he's some right-wing crazy Republican ideologue. The opposite. It's because he believes in common sense, center-of-the-road sort of solutions to solve problems. And that's why the left is so crazy about his ideas. And Mercy, you're exactly right. You know, whether the Trump-endorsed candidate is winning or not winning in these primaries, the issues that Trump brought to the table, those issues are winning. The Republican Party is thrilled about it, and that's why we're seeing this enthusiasm at the polls. And this is why Democrats are freaking out right now, is because Donald Trump has taken, let me say this, Donald Trump's issues have taken that center lane that, and Democrats may never get it back. As long as they're talking about men getting pregnant, they're never going to get that center back.
That's right. Well, Mercy, will there be any kind of,
Charlie,
will there be some kind of pivot after the midterms if, in fact, you know, they have 20, 30, 40 seats that they lose?
Well, first of all, the Democrats might be the slugs in this whole conversation that we're having right now, David. So don't pour salt on the Democrats. But the reality is that, look, I really believe that there's an internal struggle happening within the Democrat Party.
There's gotta
and
be.
The progressives keep winning. And unless you see Biden take on the Bill Clinton approach, where he hired a Republican strategist and went to the center during his re-election period of time, Biden cannot recover because he's only being held hostage by the progressives in his own party.
Yeah, I agree with you. Mercy, good to see you. Thank you very much. Charlie, have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Appreciate you both being here.